Hello, Dr. Brian Davis, Superintendent for Holland Public Schools, coming to you today to share with you some recent thoughts I've had about what should school look like this fall in 2020 when we return to school. Certainly, in my opinion, it should not be business as usual. In fact, it should be business as unusual. In 2018, when the Holland Public Schools Board of Education developed their new strategic plan, they incorporated words such as embrace, engage, and empower each child for success in an ever-changing world. Who would have known at that time an ever-changing world would have been a global pandemic impacting the health of our larger community? We are now 6 weeks removed from school, 2 weeks into our remote learning plan, and an opportunity exists for us to think about what do we relinquish, what do we reimagine, and what do we retool for the future. I'd like to share with you 5 different categories that have been put together to assist our Holland Public Schools community in that very effort, retooling, reimagining, and relinquishing things from the past as we look forward to the future of education in our school district. First and foremost, we want to engage and talk about what parent and family engagement looks like, as parents have had to take on an increasingly role of the teacher at home during this remote learning time. Secondly, we want to be able to talk about what does spring and summer learning look like for some of our most vulnerable learners, recognizing that the summer slide is a real thing, and recognizing during this unique summer of 2020, we're going to have to encourage and support learners in their continued learning efforts. Thirdly, we want to be able to look at what does a new hybrid model of learning potentially look like, not just in the fall, but into the future long term. How do we bring together the teams of teachers and support staff and administrators who have been collaborating for the past 3 to 4 weeks together to develop a new plan for now, but to develop a new plan for the future? Certainly in an era of social distancing, where practices of engaging with one another have changed significantly, we need to talk about what building management looks like into the future. So bringing together individuals that can begin to identify what supports are needed there, and how do we manage large groups, events, and activities. And finally, it's no secret that during this pandemic and stay-at-home, shelter-in-place ruling and executive orders, the economy has been impacted in a very negative way. Sales tax revenues are down, people are driving less, pumping less gasoline, and income taxes are low. So we anticipate there's going to be a significant shortfall in the general fund and subsequently the school aid fund as we move forward. So the time is now for us to begin to look at what are those programs and practices we might have to selectively abandon, what may need to be put on pause, and how do we ensure we bring forward the educational excellence that people have grown to come and expect in our school district. So let's begin to unpack each of these categories and the thinking that's been put together so far, and identify some driving questions that can assist us in our short and long-term planning over the next 6 to 18 months. Let's begin with parent and family engagement. We know that the parent at home is their child's first teacher, and we want to be able to build on that success and build upon what we're learning during a remote learning plan about the challenges and celebrations that our parents are having. What new roles and expectations will parents take on to support their children's learning at home now and in the future? And how do we best support parents in the transition and sustainability of these new roles? We're going to need to make sure that we continue to provide this information in a simple and consistent format that provides robust learning activities that still helps children advance forward in their learning. And we're going to need to make sure that we best understand the communication protocols that parents find most helpful in connecting with their teachers, with our children and students connecting with our teachers, and with understanding of how to provide appropriate feedback on each lesson. Next, let's unpack addressing spring and summer learning. So how do we address the spring and summer learning loss? And how do we bring together community partners that already exist? And how do we enhance upon those that we already have in existence? What partnerships need to be further developed with Hope College, with the Outdoor Discovery Center, with the Graph Nature Center, and many of our other area partners across the community who already help us in this work? And what supports are going to be necessary for us to transition students back to school in the fall, recognizing we haven't had a formal day since March 13th. Third, we want to begin to unpack what does learning look like, and to be able to study best practice, what other states across the country or even other countries across the globe are doing to respond to a new era of hybrid, blended, or remote learning. Given what we know now is possible and what we've been able to do in the past couple of weeks, What is it that we can springboard forward to reimagine and retool what that instruction looks like in the fall of 2020 and beyond? Within those new learning structures, how will we measure student achievement? What supports are going to be needed for our professional staff and our support staff to ensure that we're delivering this new remote learning with a high degree of quality and impact? We also need to take a whole student approach to talk about what does social emotional learning look like for those students who have been away from the classroom for a long time, and understanding the necessary relationships that are key with adults in the classroom. And we also are going to have to decide and figure out what role technology plays. What are going to be the best tools with a high enough power and connectivity to connect not only our teachers to classrooms, but our teachers to students, our teachers to parents, and our students and parents back to their teachers and their classmates. Building management is going to be another key area as we continue to focus on social distancing and those practices that are going to be essential to help flatten the curve and prevent this from spreading again in the fall. How will we manage social distancing protocols when school returns? What does lunch look like? What might a split day schedule look like? What do events and activities look like? Are we going to be responsible for universal screening our students and our staff each day? What schedules need to be adjusted both before, during, and after school? And in all of that, how do we manage a building system to make sure that we can accomplish all of those things? Finally, this work is going to require a new look at our budgets and how we prioritize our resources, especially during a projected significant decline in state revenues impacting the school aid fund over the next 2 years. So we're going to have to look at a new decision-making protocol. What contractual and legal obligations do we have to fulfill? How do these align with our strategic plan of ensuring educational excellence through the lens of equity and inclusion, building upon the collaboration and passion that is so embedded as part of our teaching staff and the ways in which they have been working together over the past several weeks? How will we define in our school system what those critical functions are? And how do we selectively abandon practices or programs that no longer serve our district into the future? And what structural savings might come from a hybrid model of learning? Each one of these 5 identified areas all work together. We need to be able to call upon our parents and our families in ways we can engage them into the future in a new hybrid model of learning. We need to talk about how we build upon spring and summer loss, not only this year, but following years to come, and how do we ensure that students are in fact ready for school at each grade level. How do we incorporate the building management practices that are going to be so key and critical to this process? And again, looking at each of those ideas and recommendations that will be brought forward to ensure that we can prioritize a budget. Over the next several weeks, champions of each of these areas will be identifying team members across the district and across our community to be able to engage in this thoughtful work and bring forward recommendations to our Board of Education. So the reason that I'm sharing this with you today in early May is because we are going to extend an invitation to you from our champions of each of these different areas to engage in this work together. This is going to be very important, and your voice is important to this process. So please engage with us and help us define our future for Holland Public Schools.